What's up, everybody? Metal Dave Glessmer, along with my co-host Jason McMaster, with you on the Talk Louder podcast. Today's guest is drummer extraordinaire Gene Hoglan. Wow, what a storied career! What an extremely talented drummer! Easily one of the best in metal of all time.
I wonder who coined him the atomic clock.
I was gonna ask him that. Dang it!
Well, we got to have a part two because we kind of got a little long with him, and we have to wrap it up sometimes because otherwise our episodes with people like Gene end up being like 5 hours long.
Right. I had that on my list of questions. Who coined the nickname Atomic Clock?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I mean, I feel like I've known Gene forever. We're not extremely close, but obviously we have a lot of love for each other and respect. And we have history, as you say. It's true, and I've cherished every minute of that man's time. He's a very special person. Hyper intelligent, well-spoken, educated man, and so talented. The guy can just play anything, and he should have a series of books out now of just personal reflection or something. Man, it would just be. I would love to read those.
You nailed it. I mean, we all know him as one of the most phenomenal drummers in heavy metal, but he also plays a lot of guitar, writes on guitar, apparently. From my understanding, he's self-taught, which is amazing. And he also writes a lot of lyrics. He wrote a bunch of lyrics on some of the Death albums and some of the Dark Angel stuff.
He wrote 2 songs on an Evil United record, and I was just stoked. I was stumped one day. The story goes, I was stumped one day writing a new Evil United record. This was some years back, and I had titles, and I was just like, who can I reached out to Larry Berrigan from Hellstar, who writes great lyrics. He's the guitar player for Hellstar, but he writes great lyrics. And I reached out to Gene, and I'm like, hey guys, what do you got? Can you help me out? And Gene was like, bam, like the next day. So that's how prolific and insanely talented mind that he is, to just go, oh, these titles are cool. I gotcha. And it was just like stream of consciousness. I wish my stream of consciousness wasn't like, look, a squirrel. You know, his is very he's got a bullseye. If he has a bullseye, he can hit it the first time. Fucking amazing man. So glad to have him. Everyone will know Gene from I'll start Dark Angel, Testament, Death, Strapping Young Lad.
Yeah,
it goes on and on and on. He's filled in for Charlie Benanti when Charlie couldn't make it for Anthrax gigs, maybe 1 or 2, 3, no more than maybe 5. I don't know. Someone can feel free to correct me on that. I think he has actually sat in for Opeth. I know he was in an Opeth video as a stand-in drummer for them.
Yeah.
The guy
also did some time in. He did some time with Forbidden, and I don't know if you mentioned Dethklok.
Well, Dethklok is one of his main things. He's like one of the proprietors now. Of course, it's the brainchild of Brendan Small, who pretty much owns stock in Cartoon Network or some shit, because of his creation on other animated programs. Not just Dethklok or what do they call? What's the name of the cartoon? Metalocalypse. Yeah. But Dethklok spawned from just the cartoon of Brendan writing these songs, and drum machining them out and go, hey, let's make a real band. Who do I get? Gene Hoglan. That's who you get.
Yeah.
That's how that happened.
And on top of all that, he's one of the sweetest guys in the world. When we open the discussion, we talk about a time a few months back when he was really kind to my son. So couldn't be happier to have him on the podcast today. One of the greatest drummers of all time. A very prolific career. You just rattled off a bunch of the bands, and I'm sure we didn't even catch them all.
Yeah, there's like 30 more.
Yeah.
So...
So, Gene Hoglan today on the Talk Louder podcast.
Gene, you met Dave last time you were in Austin.
Dave, good to see you.
How are you?
How's your son doing?
He's doing great. Thanks for asking.
Fantastic. Oh, you got the Dethklok shirt. Hell yeah, man. Awesome.
You know, I rarely buy shirts at gigs anymore because it's just so expensive and whatnot. But I had to. I insisted on buying a shirt that night at that gig because you gave me and my son such a memorable night that I never want to forget it. And he still talks about it, and he'll never forget your hospitality. We can't thank you enough. And for anyone listening, we're talking about Gene was kind enough to let my 15-year-old son sit on stage right next to him and watch him hit every drum and every cymbal at a Death to Us All gig. And my son, being an aspiring drummer, 15-year-old drummer, was just amazed. Had the best time. So we can't thank you enough.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure, Dave. Absolutely, man. That was a fun night. Absolutely. It's always great seeing my brother Jason. You know,
Yeah,
I gotta tell you that my mom used to refer to Jason as one of her other sons. You know,
Wow.
She loved that much. Totally.
Family.
Well, that says a lot, meaning that, I mean, my first thought is like, she must have had a lot of sons because, dude, you're a busy guy and you always had rock and roll people in and out of your crib all the time.
Indeed, yeah.
But she was a special lady. I remember your parents, just your family, just letting me just made myself right at home, a stranger from a strange land.
Well, they loved you very much, brother. Absolutely.
Wow. They were salt of the earth, man. And on that note, when Dave tells the story he just tells of the Death to All show fairly recently in Austin,
All right.
and I've already told Dave that's all Gene. That wasn't my idea. Hey, Gene, can my buddy bring his kid on the stage and get up your ass while you play up there? You know, no, Dave, that was all Gene. That is the Gene Hoglan that I've always known. Thinking about the little guy, thinking about the fans, thinking about people. You know, it's pretty easy, Gene, don't you think? It's pretty fucking easy if you have the means to make someone's fucking day.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. You know, it's always so easy, you know, because that night, that was a piece of cake, you know, it wasn't very arduous, you know, just like, yeah, come on over, hang out, you know, just hang out.
But some people, I'm sorry to interrupt, some people may not be able to let down whatever it's all on them. It's all in their head and what they need, what concoction they have in order to perform, to be on stage and be who they are without having, hey, just cramping my style, kid, get out of here. That's not you, but you understand how some people might be like, I don't know, man, I might, you know.
Well, there was none of that. And
No,
in fact, the cool thing was, I mean, when it couldn't get cooler, Gene got on a live mic and introduced my son to the audience, made him stand up, take a bow. My kid was just in seventh heaven. I mean, it was incredible.
Awesome.
Yeah, dude.
That's really
Absolutely
fun.
incredible.
Before we get any deeper, Dave, turn your mic up a little bit.
All right.
Gene, you look and sound great.
Oh, thank you.
I'm the
How's that?
well, just eat
too
the
much?
mic maybe, or even turn it up even more. Just a little bit.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
you're good now.
Okay. So, Gene, I didn't realize, here's my ignorance. I didn't know you were born in Dallas. So you're a fellow Texan.
Indeed. Yeah.
What was it like growing up in Dallas? What was your home life like? And where did you get your appreciation for music?
Well, it was, I spent my first 2 years in Dallas, and then I spent my next 2 years in El Paso. So, and then when I was very, very late my family moved to Los Angeles. And I got to tell you, like, my Texas classic rock radio, like classic rock now, like KLAQ in El Paso, and just Texas in general has fantastic radio. So I was a huge fan of not only the AM pop stuff, but also getting into like kind of the classic rock stuff. And my parents would always tell me that when I was 2, I was very, very adamant that they take me to the record store and get the latest Santana single, which was "No One to Depend On," and the B-side was a song called "Taboo." And I still have a copy of that 45. So
wow.
I just got super into music at the time, and as I got a little bit older, my cousin Ken from El Paso and my older sister Lisa, they're 5 and 6 years older than me. So when I'm 8 and they're like 13 and 14 and that kind of thing, getting into rock and roll, all the stuff from the mid 70s kind of thing, all the Kiss and Queen and Black Sabbath and all that kind of stuff. I was right there with both of them, getting into all of it with them. And of course, like when Lisa would want to go to a concert or something, my parents would be like, "Take your brother," Bob, no, come on, really? Yeah. So I went to a whole lot of concerts. I saw Queen a million times when I was a kid, and went to go see everybody when I was a kid. So I definitely have had a childhood unlike many other kids, like going to all the clubs in LA, all the big ones that you hear about when I was 13.
Wow.
And I didn't look 13. I mean, this look has not changed since I was 13 years old. I've, got a little more beard here, but I've looked the exact same from back in the day.
Pretty much. The internet
right?
can prove that.
Yeah, right.
It's like pictures from fucking 30 years ago, and you pretty much kind of look the same.
Yeah,
if not better looking, I should add. So
yeah, that doesn't happen to guys like me and Jason.
Yeah.
You got a couple of handsome studs, you guys. So.
Well, listen.
Hey, did you see the Queen tour with Thin Lizzy?
Yes, that was my very first concert.
Oh,
I was gonna say, it wasn't Queen your first show. That's what I thought. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it was Queen with Thin Lizzy, and Thin Lizzy opened with Jailbreak, so that was the very first concert I ever saw with the smoke and the sirens, and that was just the coolest thing ever. And
yeah.
I was really disappointed that Thin Lizzy didn't have Brian Robertson on guitar because he had gotten into some bar fight recently. They had some guy named Gary Moore.
Yeah.
Man, we don't have Brian Robertson, man. What's up with this Gary Moore guy, man? Yeah. So there you go. But that's pretty cool. Queen was on their Day at the Races run, and I actually saw that show here in San Diego. So that was pretty cool.
Cool. You have I'm going to confess, because I don't have a stack of Gene Hoglan at the ready.
Oh, no worries.
I actually went to the damn Wikipedia and I just clicked on discography just to kind of click on the internet's stack of Gene Hoglan, pile of Gene, right? And I needed a nap after I kind of read through it. and I want to say that Punch Drunk wasn't on there.
What in the world? What kind of nonsense is that? I could have sworn it would have been.
I don't know. I mean, I don't give a shit. I'll look at it while we're still on here.
Whoever threw that up there, because I guarantee you that's not me. I don't even know what the Wikipedia has on it.
It's got a lot. It stops at 2020. I'll say that. So they got some catching up to do. I mean, it's impressive enough for it to be missing one or two things. I'm only guessing, but I didn't see Punch Drunk.
Holy moly.
And I love the Punch Drunk thing that you did for a little bit.
Right.
Awesome. And someone actually stole that CD from me. So I hope they're enjoying it as much as I did.
wasn't me.
Oh man, I wish I had a copy of that, man. I have to go to YouTube anytime I ever want to check out some punk.
Don't we all for our olden times?
I've always said the guys in the bands are the last ones to have any of their stuff.
That's pretty true. We give it all away, and then we never think that, hey, 30 years later, you might want to, be able to reference this stuff. You're like, oh man, thank God for streaming services and YouTube and stuff like that now. Because I can't keep track. I can't keep track of all the stuff I've done. I mean, there are entire albums I don't remember. It's not like I was partying and drunk. It's just I don't remember a lot of records that I've played on. And there's been times when I hear something on Sirius or something, or just you go to a club or whatever. There's something playing in the background. You're like, this sounds kind of familiar. And then somebody's like, dude, you played on this. So like, okay, well, there you go.
Well, it was also fun to just kind of see things that I feel like I once knew and just totally fucking forgot,
Right.
That in 1983, it says you did backing vocals on Slayer Evil Has No Boundaries from Show No Mercy. Now listen, I don't think that I actually had heard that story. Do you recall what the fuck? I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, tell us that. Let's pretend we have a campfire here. And
well, I've had to repeat this story a number of times. So, but yeah, it was. I was at the time. I was, Slayer was playing all the clubs, and at that time, they were the heaviest band in the world. And I was really excited at the fact that their following was literally 30 people, 30 of the same heads would go to the shows all the time at the most, and they played once a week everywhere. And at the Woodstock or the Country Club or Troubadour or Radio City or the Concert Factory and all these places. And they didn't have a large following. And that was beautiful to me because I was like, this band is so heavy. Nobody will ever discover this band, because right then in early 1983, all of my favorite bands, Maiden and Priest and Motorhead, they were all starting to get discovered by, the other kids at the high schools and things like that. And so I was just like, man, all my favorite back pocket bands, they're all real popular now. Maiden is on MTV now and that kind of thing. And so when Slayer came along and Dark Angel for that matter, and early Metallica, all that stuff, Slayer was the coolest for me because I was like, nobody will ever discover this band. They're way too heavy. Rat and Quiet Riot and Motley Crue and all those bands can be on the radio and nobody's going to ever know who Slayer is. So that was always really fun for me. And I obviously, when you're going to club shows, when the band's playing clubs, they're really accessible. You can just go up to any guy in the band after the show. Good show, liked your show, liked your band and all that stuff. And we all just became pals. And I was hanging around with them a whole lot at that time. And they would rehearse at Tom's house and in his garage. And a lot of the pictures you see from Slayer from back in the day, those were taken from Tom's garage, that kind of thing. And so Tom had invited me. I remember I used to speak to Tom on the phone every single day when I was 15. And Tom was so kind and so generous. I had to call. I knew what time he got home from work. And
shit.
He was a respiratory therapist at the time. And I know what time he'd get home from work, and I'd be calling him every day. And he was always so generous. A guy, he'd talk to this 15-year-old kid. We talk about music and the band and all that kind of stuff. And he invited me to the studio. Me and my friend Joel. Jason, you probably met Joel at some point, especially back in the day.
Yes.
We were both hanging out with Slayer all the time back then, and so he invited us both down there. And I remember Evil Has No Boundaries used to be Jeff and Carrie doing the background vocals. And I'm sure there's some old YouTubes of this kind of thing where it was just, the guys were like, evil, my words defy, evil. It just wasn't real heavy, and Tom's voice at the time, nobody sounded like Tom. Tom was very into like Kronos from Venom, maybe some Lemmy, those were the only kind of guys that were in the similar vein as Tom. And his voice was just so unbelievably heavy that it was time for Jeff and Carrie to go into the vocal booth and do the vocals. And there was Tom and Carrie sitting on a couch right there. And I was like, hey, dudes, have you guys ever thought about like maybe getting like a big gang of dudes in there and going evil, kind of thing. I was thinking like, Y&T gang choruses, kind of thing, like the big gang chorus.
But from hell.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so they looked at each other like, great idea. No time like the present. Everybody get in the vocal booth. And so there was myself and there was Joel and there was Johnny Araya, Tom's younger brother. Johnny was like 14, 15 at the time.
Yeah.
And so Johnny was just reminding me a couple of years ago, he's like, yeah, remember they didn't have enough. There was like 8 guys in there and there was only one vocal headphone, they didn't have like multiple headphones. So I had to sit there with the headphones, the ear flaps, flapped out so we could all hear the song. I was like, that's right. I forgot about that. I remember exiting the vocal booth and, I just, Hanneman's next to me. I was like, I sang Devo. And Hanneman's like, I sang Weebles. And I swear to God, man, if you listen real carefully, got the headphones on, you can hear a guy going Devo, and you hear another guy going Weebles. And
that's hilarious.
That's pretty damn fun. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's kind of, that's like Easter eggs.
Yeah, right.
It's like hidden treasure. Yeah. No one knows this, but on Meltdown, Watchtower, of course, Doug Keezer singing on the breakdown. Doug Keezer's in there. We're doing gang vocals, similar story, and Doug Keezer sang break dance.
Oh, that's fun.
And you can hear it. You can totally hear it. If you're looking for it, you can hear it.
I'll check that out, man.
That's hilarious. That's a good one. Now, what about, and then we'll move on, of course, but this is lore. This is tales of the LA early thrash scene when there was not really it was budding. It was just starting to.
Yeah, there was no scene.
Yeah, it wasn't even in the water yet. Right. So it's kind of interesting to hear these, but it could have been the same session. No, it wasn't. It was Haunting the Chapel. You're holding the kick drums down on which song?
That was Chemical Warfare.
Chemical Warfare. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were sliding across the room and you.
Right. It was the same studio, a studio called Track Records in Hollywood. And that was right on Melrose. As a matter of fact, Laura and I just drove past where it used to be last week.
I recorded there, I think.
Track Record, kick ass. Holy moly. Yeah, shoot. And Bill Matoye was doing both of those projects.
Is that how you say his last name?
Right.
Is that how you say his last name? Is that correct?
I found that out. Yeah, I was like, really?
Oh my God.
Yeah, Matoyer.
There's bazillions of heavy metal fans who are saying Matoyer right now.
Matoyer. I
always said Meteor.
Meteor? Oh, that's metal. That's kind of metal. Yeah. Wow, far out. Say it again.
Matoyer.
Wow.
Yeah, man. Yeah. At least that's what he explained to us one time. But he pulling with us. But yeah, man. So
to make it sound classier than it is.
He was doing that, and it was that was just the issue. There was no drum carpet. It was just a concrete floor. There was no drum carpet, or anything like that. There wasn't any like posts that you like little wood blocks or anything that you're nailed into the concrete. So yeah, Dave was kicking the hell out of his kit, and he started with, that was the first song was Chemical Warfare. And he's like, hey, can somebody come in? We're all he's in the booth, he's in the drum room by himself. He's like, can somebody come in and hold my drums because they're walking. And there were like 8 faces that just turned towards me. Like, you're the drummer guy. You go out there and do it. So I was like, oh God. So I remember getting down there and, on my hands and knees and arms around cymbal stands and mic stands and all this stuff. And I'm holding on to it. And that tom from, I remember Dave had Evans hydraulic drum heads and they were purple. And so you could see through them. And I just, that tom was right above my head. And I remember thinking, oh my God, Dave, I hope you get this in 1 or 2 takes, because if we're here for hours, I'm going to die. And sure enough, he nailed it in the first take, maybe did a secondary safety take kind of thing. And so, he nailed it super quick. But that's always how I remember Chemical Warfare is, seeing Dave's just, drumstick just tapping the head right above my face. So
well, let me just say that I think that I fucking love it. I may wait a year until I ask you again to tell me that story. I love it so much. The deal is this. It's like, I know you weren't wearing fucking earplugs.
No, not at all.
The crash cymbals are a foot away from your face.
That kind of thing.
I bet you were.
And that was also kind of fun. That China that's in Chemical Warfare. That's my China. My cymbals were making appearances on records before my drumming ever did.
Wow. Wow.
That's pretty fun.
Well, is it true that, at that point you're already playing double kick, and Lombardo was not in the early days of Slayer? Is it true that you sort of introduced him or mentored him or kind of, gave him some pointers about playing double kick, and then he goes on to be thought of as one of the greatest of all times, much like yourself? But is there any truth to that he was kind of a newbie when it came to double kick and you were the guy that was sort of there first?
That is true. However, I didn't have a double kick set. I wasn't playing double kick at the time. But I just had sort of a natural aptitude for it. And that's how that story goes, is that, in the summer of '83, Dave introduced a secondary kit to his kit for one show. I remember that show was out in Pico Rivera. And I was like, wow, Dave's playing double bass. And then they went in to record Show No Mercy. And, I'm there and I'm like, there's no double bass on this thing. What's going on? He's like, yeah, I wasn't getting it. I didn't get it in time for the recording. So I just figured I'll just go back to what I know. And a few months later, I go to Tom's place. Dave has the secondary kit set up again. And I'm like, kick ass, you're getting the double bass together, because that's one thing you need. You need to be playing double bass, man, because that's the band needed. I can tell.
The riffs are screaming for it. The over the top from the writing. Yeah,
absolutely, totally. And he's like, I understand that. He's like, however, I'm still not getting it. And I'm like, okay, well, tell me what's happening. He kind of gives me the quick rundown. It's like this, I can't get this to work or that or this or that. And I was like, well, I don't know. I'll tell you what, just let me sit behind the kit. Let me see what I can do here. See if I can come up with any sort of anything that might be able to help you. And I get on the kit and I just start flying, and I think I'm doing exactly what he wants to be doing. My first beat was pretty much like, the chorus to Angel of Death, or the little reintroduction and praise of death. I know they were working on that song at the time. They didn't have Angel of Death yet, but the chorus of Angel of Death, just fast double bass. The intro to Death is Certain, Life is Not by Dark Angel, that kind of thing. And that was, he was tripped out. He was like, whoa, dude, when did you get double bass? I've been to your house. I've jammed on your drums. You have a single bass kit. When did you get double bass? How long have you been playing double bass? And I literally looked at my watch and I said, what time is it? Because, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, this is it. This is my first time ever playing double bass. He's like, wow. Okay. His light bulbs went off. He's like, okay, tell me what you're doing. I'm like, well, I'm watching my left foot, concentrating on my left foot. He's like, well, that's the issue I'm having. So I just gave him like the rundown really quick. Here's the 6 things that I'm doing, making sure that left foot is coming down with the correct hand, all that kind of stuff. And he was taking notes. And so, I'd always sit with him and just kind of show him stuff. And I remember after we did the Haunting the West Coast little tour together, I was their light guy for that. I was like, I don't know, 15 years old or something, 16. Yeah, 16, I think. Wow. After the tour, he had asked if I would stay with them and be his, I remember he used the term drum tutor. And I was like, well, that is a very, very kind offer of you, Dave, but I think I want to be in a band. I hadn't really been in a band yet, but I was like, after getting a taste of this little road work here and because I was jamming with Slayer during the sound checks. So Dave could go out in the front of house and hear how the band sounds, hear how his drums sound, because you never really get to do that as a drummer. Like, I never got to see strapping young lad from the front of house, So yeah, I was, we played a number of Dark Angel songs in sound check. I remember with Slayer, and I'd do like Antichrist or whatever, just playing Slayer songs with them. And Dave could be out by the front of house and check out what it sounds like. And so being able to do stuff like that was, it was impetus enough for me to go, yeah, this is, I already knew I wanted to be in a band. I knew I wanted to play drums for a living. And so that just cemented everything. So that's why I was like, thank you, Dave. But, I want to do what you're doing. I want to start going on tour and all that kind of stuff. So there you go.
Well, I think that it's amazing that this is kind of a play on words. A style was born. A star was born. A style was born.
There you go. That's fun.
Kind of between you guys figuring out something to, this style of guitar playing and this style of singing and this style of this approach to riffage and writing and drum banter between things that, the stop start riff and things like that were quickly becoming popular pre-internet, pre-Spotify, pre-discovery of things. You guys are kids in the fucking garage. And I can relate. I was lucky enough to be there and discover these guys that were doing something that completely wackadoo that I had never seen or heard before, and maybe still haven't. But the idea is still the rawness of this, and it's unbelievable to me that that you are kind of you're part of the spore of something, because ironically, you're holding the kick drums down on Chemical Warfare, and then you tell the story about Dave's question and your answer back to full circle Chemical Warfare. You're hugging the kick drums. He's doing the double kick solo in that where it's just the kicks, right? Is that the right song?
Well, that would be kind of Angel of Death there, but Chemical Warfare had its middle parts, that kind of thing. But
okay, Angel right. It is Angel of Death that has that, but similarly, the idea of that, guitar, it would be the double picking, the alternate picking, and then the 30-second where it's just a twitch, Right. You guys kind of like were the spawn and spore of that. I think that it's amazing, and it should go in some fucking history books. It has my vote.
I tell you. Yeah. Well, that's where. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That's and like that's where our influences, you know, guys like for myself, guys like Filthy Animal Taylor, Rob Wacko Hunter from Raven, Rob Reiner from Anvil, you know, and the drummer from Jaguar and all those kind of guys, you know, all the really fast, speedy double bassists, you know, even starting off with like a Cozy Powell or whoever it might have been.
Yeah.
You know, those guys giving us our initial like spark to try something, you know, Stephen Kaufman, Fast as a Shark.
Yes.
You know, I mean, my God, that was just the apex. Double bass was never ever going to get any faster than Fast as a Shark. You know, it's like that's the fastest you could play double bass. You just cannot play double bass any faster than that. And sure enough, you know, 2-3 years later, a bunch of us children were trying to play it faster, and it was getting to the point where, yeah, that alternate picking, that alternate just straight alternate double bass things were happening, and that's where I was like, well, that's all really cool. However, what if you were to try to do patterns on the double kick, like, you know, or something?
Yeah,
that kind of thing, or, you know, something that you can do on your hands. Well, you know, I don't hear anybody trying that sort of thing. So why don't you take that approach? And so that's where coming up with double bass patterns and you know, I played a lot of guitar back in those days. So that's why I was like, well, geez, I can do a double bass pattern, you know, write something on the kick and then follow that with the guitar, chunk that guitar. I've never heard anybody do that together where, you know, now the that kind of approach, doing that on the kicks, doing that on the guitar. You know, Dark Angel, why don't we try doing that? Because I don't hear anybody else doing that sort of thing. I would write patterns on the toilet, you know, with my feet on the toilet. And I'd be like, okay, well, just write that as a riff and just chunk that. Nobody's ever done that before. So, hey, Dark Angel, you guys got yourself a little sound going there, that kind of thing, a little style. So, like, I just never heard anybody doing that before Darkness Descends or you know, Leave Scars or Time Does Not Heal. I didn't even think for 1 minute I'm creating some sort of something or other out of thin air. It was like, I don't hear anybody else doing that. Cool. Let's try something that nobody else is doing, because I'm all about trying to be original. And back in those days, it was really easy to be original, you know, because Metallica sounded like Metallica, Slayer sounded like Slayer, Anthrax, Megadeth, they all had their own sounds. Sure. And even when you started diving underneath that, you know, Nuclear Assault had their sounds. Creator had their approach. Dark Angel had our approach. Death Angel had their approach. Possessed had their approach. You know, and all of these bands, you know, to some degree, you know, there were so many bands that did not. It was such it was the Wild West, you know. Death Angel did not sound like, you know, Creator, did not sound like Possessed, did not sound like Dark Angel, you know, all that stuff. So every band sounded pretty darn original. And you know, Jason, you would know, you come from one of the most original sounding bands of all time. You know, Watchtower, we all worshiped Watchtower. Every one of us, you know, and anybody that was into metal, you guys were the apex of what you guys were the first band to do what you did. You created technical metal, you know, flat out. Watchtower did, you know, and to where bands like Death and Cynic and Atheist, we all look to Watchtower and your influence on us as elevating, you know. Rick Kolaluka, he's always been, I've always spoken of Rick as one of my drum aspirations, you know. I've always wanted to, I aspired to play like Rick. I couldn't, but I would try, you know. And so that's why you're a part of all of this, Jason. You're a part of the lineage of what is happening today. You know, you go to the most well-known technical metal band on the planet, Meshuggah, and who do they look to? Watchtower. So there you go. That's pretty darn fun.
Yeah, that's really fun. Rick is going to be tickled to death that you name dropped him, name checked him, gave him a big hug
Oh, I do all
on the show today. Yeah, so someone commented we leaked that we were going to be talking to you today, and it's someone who frequents the boards, the social media on some of my sites, as well as Talk Louder podcast. George, sorry George, I can't pronounce your last name. I think he's in Greece. Anyway, he is well aware of your love for Rick. Because he commented, he was like, "Oh, he talks about Kola Luka, yeah." So he knows, Gene knows what's up. Yeah. Let's jump around a little bit. So you're about to work on the new Dethklok record. Is that true?
Actually, well, the Dethklok record is about to come out in I don't know 3 or 4 days now.
Wow. Okay.
We have a movie called The Army of the Doomstar, which comes out in very, very late August, like in 4 or 5 days, something like that, a week from now, something like that.
So this episode of the show won't be out. These 2 items will be on the market by the time this shows. So
then by the time this gets released, the new album will be out. And there's 2 records coming out, 2 Dethklok albums coming out. One is Death Album 4, which is our new studio album. And then there's a number of tracks from the movie, the soundtrack album to Army of the Doomstar. I didn't call it Death Star earlier. Army of the Doomstar.
Oh, you said it right. You said it right.
Oh, thank God. Thank God. And so what I was doing just right up before this, we go on tour next. Well, by the time this comes out, we might be in the middle of the tour, or maybe the tour might be over. But we are going out on a 6-week run this next week. It starts in late August, and it's Dethklok and a band called Baby Metal, and we do a co-headlining run across the states. And so what we were doing, and what I'll be jumping back on as soon as this is over, is we are putting the new animation together. As for those who have not seen Dethklok live, we are the actual band itself is kind of like the orchestra pit band. We are kind of relatively anonymous as in terms of the band on stage, but what we want you looking at is the big gigantic video screen behind us, a big digital screen, and that is just pummeling you with kick-ass animation, and so it is definitely a flat-out assault on your senses, and so it's pretty darn cool, man. So we're putting together there's a number of new animations going on, a relatively new show, because this is our first tour in a decade. We've been doing these little spot, single date kind of shows, weekend warrior kind of things from time to time. So we've got a brand new show together to celebrate the new movie, new album, the soundtrack album. So
yeah.
This year could be quite the year for Dethklok. Absolutely.
Well, so 10 years ago, was it 10 years ago that you guys came through Austin on a Dethklok tour? Is that right?
I think that was 15 years ago.
Holy shit.
I think that was back in 2008, and I'm pretty sure you came out to that one.
I did.
Right?
And you just described the vibe. I think I watched from the front of house deck, and the screen, you guys are silhouettes, and the screen is what you want. For those of you who have not seen Dethklok live, you're describing it exactly what I saw. I would imagine that just with the storyline and more intense music from Dethklok, updated, 15 years later, I can't fucking believe that.
Right.
That the animation is even more hardcore, probably bloodier and funner.
It is, and it's actually to the point where we've, in order to make this set work, we had to pull out a couple of the more, what's that term? NSFW, W, not safe for the workplace. Yeah, because the band has never been shy about having cartoon nudity, but unfortunately, one of the songs that we had to pull out had a ton of the nudity in it, but there's still plenty of gore, definitely, and it's just such an all-encompassing pile of entertainment.
I love how excited you are about this shit. It's just
right, yeah,
great.
That's awesome. I get stoked about it. There's been so many guys over the years that have, like you're playing a town somewhere and they're like, and some of these guys are older than me. This is like, we haven't toured in a decade, so I was in my late 30s, early 40s kind of thing when we were on the road. Guys who are older than me, guys that might be my age now, I'm 55 now, that would come up to me and say, look, I've been to every concert in my town here, from all the club shows to all the big gigantic arena shows, and this was the best concert I've ever seen in my life. I'm like, wow, that you've seen it all. They're like, yeah, I've seen it all. And this, like, the smile on my face and my heart right now is huge. And that's, how cool is that? Just having, at the end of the night, everybody is so over the top satisfied and happy that they're going home with big giant smiles on their faces. They've had fantastic killer metal ripping their faces off, and there's humor involved and just the whole onslaught of everything. What a fantastic, perfect night that you get when you go see Dethklok. So I'm pretty stoked about it. Yeah, totally.
I've never seen Dethklok, but now I want to. You should be your own publicist when that tour rolls.
Well, there you go.
Tour rolls out, because that was well played.
Excellent. Okay, cool.
I'm totally intrigued.
Well, you have to come out to one of the shows, man. We're playing Texas, next week, doing 2 shows. One's in Houston, the other's in Dallas. So,
all right. Well, maybe you can add another leg at some point, and get San Antonio or Austin or whatever. But yeah,
I hope so.
I wanted to ask you, how old were you when you recorded Darkness Descends? Because, your accolades speak for themselves. You've done a lot of incredible stuff, but I feel like a lot of people would point to that record as possibly being maybe your highlight record.
My God, Lord Almighty. God, if it's all downhill after that, then holy.
Well, no, and I don't mean it like that. I mean, the album to me is always revered. It's always held up along, the best of Slayer, the best of Megadeth, the best of, Metallica, Testament. I know it was a primitive effort by today's standards, and you were much younger then. But I still think a lot of people revere that as one of the classic thrash metal albums of all time. So I wanted to know.
It's on the list. People still revere it. So
yeah. I understand that. I do understand that take on it, and that's very cool. Absolutely. I was 18, and I did not know anything about anything at the time. I'd been playing drums for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, kind of, guitar for about the same. And I did not understand enough about music or the approach of, there was no restraint. Well, actually, there was a lot of restraint on Darkness Descends. We showed a lot of restraint because we used to play a lot faster. And, but I did not know how to rein in, like, it didn't seem all that fast to me at the time. Now, when I go back and listen to it and try to play some of those songs, it's like, oh, what were you thinking, dude? And, but it was definitely some youthful exuberance and enthusiasm, and all, I never viewed us as like anything over the top fast or anything over the course of history, and having some of the folks that have come up to cite that album as something that they listened to, and they based, my early, bands or whatever. We really looked to that record for some inspiration. It's pretty surprising. And we had no idea that, we'd still be talking about that record almost pushing 40 years later. That came out in 86, so it's 37 years old this year. And so, yeah, that's pretty darn fun, and being able to revisit those old days have been quite a challenge. But I tell you, what a great way to prepare for like the drumming that goes on with like a Dethklok or something by playing nonstop Dark Angel for the last year. Everything else is a piece of cake next to it, so yeah, I'm well prepared for the Dethklok.
Let's talk about that. Congratulations on 37 years of Darkness Descends. You guys have been globetrotting.
A little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. As Dark Angel. There's so many things we could go into. You leaving Testament to go Dark Angel, fairly full-time.
Right.
There's a lot of things, and there's, I don't even want to hear if there was any politics. It seems like it was amicable and totally cool.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you guys are probably all sweet to each other like brothers. I'm sure. Yes. And then the Death to All tour, tours plural in between things, but Dark Angel, I think is something that I want to talk about. The response, the sellouts, the resurgence, all of these things people would like to try to make happen for a band they started or joined or were a part of when they didn't have any ball hair,
pretty much.
You know what I mean? And you've done it. You guys have done it, and you're solid. And the love that you have and the family style that you have with Dark Angel, and you guys are a ball of love, just crushing the planet. I was watching from afar, just almost in tears and of joy, and just like hugging you guys so as hard as I could from this chair, from my car, from just hearing about you guys doing this shit for something that that's been around for 40 fucking years, and you're out there doing it. Give me your feelings, because I'm feeling like you guys were just on such a fucking high.
Well, yeah, God, you're gonna give me tears, Jason. That's amazing. Thank you.
Dude, it's real. It's fucking real, bro.
Well, I tell you, that ball of love, that was what came from just, teenage aggression and how it's come to this point where you can still have that aggression and enthusiasm that you had when you were a teenager, but you've got some seasoning as being, an adult dude and lady now. That we're pretty stoked that we get to do this. And I've always said, I can't say that. But I guess I've come to more in more recent times that if there are people that are interested, then we are interested to come play for you, kind of thing. And because there was a long time when I just thought, I guess Dark Angel, a fantastic, wonderful part of my past, the genesis of what helped kind of propel me to the whatever other places I've been able to go to musically. It was a fantastic genesis, but some things might be better left in the past because you can't improve upon those things. But one thing, when we did get back together about a decade ago, that was really from a kind of hey, the schedule has kind of opened up. You kind of can go do this if you wanted to. And we were always pals. Dark Angel never broke up due to any kind of animosity or anything. We were always brothers and friends. The band just sort of dissolved, and and there wasn't any big, there's no heartbreak involved in anything. And so we were always pals and we were always friends. And when the opportunity arose to, hey guys, reaching out to each other, we're a few things are starting to occur where we could go out and play a few shows if we wanted. And everybody was like, I'm in, let's do it. And it was, the vibe was so different on a much cooler, way more elevated level when we got back together. We're all adults. I stopped being a jerk, because I was a taskmaster back in the day. And after hanging out with the unicorn, Laura Christine, for a number of years, it's like that softened my butter quite a bit. And so I'm a big softie with the guys, and we were all real soft with each other, and it just became such a familial effort of indeed love, and we love the music, we love each other. If people are interested in seeing Dark Angel, then we're happy to bring it to people. And so we had done an initial run of shows, and those went so well and so smooth that Jim Durkin, he brought a couple of tunes to the table pretty quickly. And that's where I was like, my word, God, Jim, these are so Dark Angel. So these are the coolest couple of tunes I've heard in some time. So yeah, like let's start getting together, Jim. And he's like, okay, cool, let's do this. And one thing Jim always told us was, I'm going to do as much as I can, because after he left from Dark Angel back in like 1989, he got himself a very lucrative career outside the music industry. And he's like, I'll be a part of everything that I can be. But you never know, there could be some things up in the future. I'll do as many gigs as I can. I'm not sure about like a big whole tour, but some weekend warrior kind of things, a couple of dates here and there. I'll do what I can. And sure enough, Jim did for so long. And it was when, he chose his replacement, Laura Christine. He went to her himself and said, you're my favorite guitarist. I want you to replace me, because I have now played my final show with Dark Angel. It later turned out to be that the show he was thinking was his final show was not his final show. But he still told Laura, like, I want you to, I want the band to be able to continue. I want to just be in the background, write music, write with Gene. We're trying to write together. I still want to do that, but maybe from the live touring aspect, that might not be for me from this point on. So Laura, what do you think about jumping in and taking over? And, it was a surprise to Laura. She was looking at me like, both of us like, did you guys even talk about this? And Jim's like, wow. No, I'm laying this on you right here, right now. And she's like, well, it's an honor. I'd love to, help the band out. Of course. I love you guys. I want you guys to be able to, I love you, Jim, and I want you to be able to, everybody to be happy. So I'm in. And we did not expect for Jim's life to be cut short as soon as it was. And that was such a shock to us all. Yeah. Indeed, he might not have been in the live touring lineup at the time, but he's still in the band. He was still like we had 6 members, one of which is live as being place sat by another member, but Jim's passing was very unexpected, very shocking. Like for Jim to go MIA from like text threads and email threads, and a lot of times Eric Meyer would say, hey man, I called Jim, left a message for him, haven't heard back from him. I'm like, yeah, me too, I called him a couple weeks ago, haven't heard back. That was par for the course with Jim. We just thought, Jim's busy. You know, it's really just, you know, Jim will get back to us a couple months later, say, hey guys, it's been crazy at work. I'm here, you know, all that kind of stuff. And this time it just didn't happen, you know. I got a call from Ron Reinhardt, our vocalist, while I was on the Death to All tour. I found out like 2 days before I saw you guys, you know. I'm like, I remember it was April 9th. I'm sorry, March. Yeah. March 9th when I found out, and saw you guys on like March 11th or something like that, you know. And it was an absolute devastating shock from, you know, Jim has been my brother since I was, you know, a teenager, like you've been my brother, Jason, you know, like, and for him to be a little bit MIA, like I say, par for the course, I did not think that was going to be the final time we ever spoke. You know, it was the time before that when we did speak, you know, just, so it was very challenging to get that news in the middle of a tour when there's not much you can do, you know, and there's nothing you can do. Jim was gone, you know, so we've just tried to show as much support to his wife, Annie, as we can. And, you know, Jim is still such an important part of Dark Angel. We would not be here without Jim. And Jim was my biggest guitar influence when I was a kid. His style, like he was doing things nobody else was doing on guitar, and you know, riff writing, and that's why I wish Darkness Descends came out with a better production. You know, to really showcase his riffs. You know, it was kind of an odd sounding, you know, Dark Angel's always been kind of an odd sounding band, you know. Darkness Descends, We Have Arrived, I'm sorry, Leave Scars, two not fantastic sounding records. But Jim's approach was one of a kind, and so it definitely had its imprint upon me. So you know, I if there is going to be any Dark Angel music coming in the future, although Jim might not have many actual riffs in Dark Angel's music, his approach and his style is definitely going to be there. So that's how that stands, you know. I mean, he's our brother, we miss him, and you know, things we do, it's in a tribute to him, but we never want to be, you know, we never want to be uncomfortable with it. We want to celebrate his life, you know, celebrate Jim Durkin rather than be, you know, maudlin or anything. We want to celebrate his impact on us anyway, on and whatever impact he had on metal. He is an absolute godfather of thrash metal. He's one of the first guys doing it, you know, totally. So, you know, I'd like the world to know that. You know, I know we would like the world to know that Jim is one of the progenitors of this style. Absolutely. So there you go.
From Southern California, when you see photos that are probably more than likely posted by Caton DePena, of him with Hanneman, and there's Jim, there's JD right there in the middle of it all, holding up a beer, going rah, you know,
absolutely.
Or Harold Oyman, or you know, the Harry O is posting some shit from the Bay Area, and there's Jim with everybody else. So it's kind of like, well, who's that guy? It's fucking Jim Durkin.
Right, absolutely.
So the footprint and the celebration, I think, is going to go on forever. And I think that, you know, the shows you did after the last time we saw you in Texas, we're obviously flying the Jimmy flag and going, here it is, and this is going to continue, and let's hope it continues with new Dark Angel material, which of course will have Jim all over it. I told you that night last time we got to chat. I have not gone back and listened to them because I'm a little uncomfortable doing that. voice messages from Jim.
Right.
2 days prior to me hearing about his passing. The last message I got from him, which would have been via messenger, was what's your email again? Like he was going to send me, because we had been talking about writing together, and he had sent me a couple of song ideas and things like that. And then just explosion of sadness with his passing. I still can't, it was like, oh wow, this is going to be great. I'm excited to get to tell what happened. So I really hope that there is some light coming for material, because especially if some of the riffs were written by Jim.
Absolutely. And, I know there's going to come a time, hopefully very soon, when we can announce a whole bunch of exciting stuff. And I know I've mentioned that in a couple of interviews as we've gone, but at some point when we get a little bit further down the timeline and there are some, just announcing vagaries won't cut it. When I'm able to give actual dates, and here are solid, because there are a lot of things in the works, definitely. And just when I and Dark Angel and just whoever is involved in everything is able to pin down some serious, scheduling dates, then, we are going to be doing that. But things are moving in a fantastic direction.
Great.
And I know I've said that for the past decade. And that's what I'm saying. I really hope that there's a time very soon when we can make some serious, flat out announcements, but things are moving along really, really well. And I'm really excited about a lot of it. I don't know if I mentioned any of that to you when we
I overheard you responding to, I think, Rodney Dunsmore, who I brought up to the dressing room about that. Remember,
That's right.
Rodney inquired, and that answer you just gave, you gave an abbreviated version of that to Rodney, and I overheard that. So yes.
Well, we're excited.
That's a very positive sort of like I said, that's a light.
That's right.
That's a light that you're looking at. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Darn tootin'. Absolutely.
I wanted to, number one, I wanted to correct myself when I was talking about Darkness Descends being your highlight reel. Obviously, you've grown and matured and developed. I was trying to make the point that album stands out in the hierarchy of thrash metal albums as a milestone. But what I wanted to ask you is, because there's so much to talk about, but I do want to capture some of the more prominent points in your career. So I wanted you to talk a little bit about the albums you did with Death and also Testament, because everybody watching this or listening to this is going to want to hear your stories about your time with Death and Testament. Where do you rank those records in your catalog as far as performance and memories and that sort of thing?
Well, I guess starting with Death, I guess chronologically, I suppose, speaking of Death, that was Death was a very special point in my life or my career. One of the more important aspects of Death for me was the fact, like with Dark Angel, I was writing most of the material at the time, just big, gigantic, percentages of it. And I was becoming so much of a guitarist at the time that the drums were starting to take kind of a back seat to everything. So that's where, being a part of Death, I got to concentrate on being just the drummer. Chuck was in charge of the riffs and the lyrics and the majority of the press and handling the biz and taking care of the band. All the things that I was doing for Dark Angel, I didn't have to do anymore. So it's like, wow, all I have to do is just come up with cool drum parts to these fun riffs. I'm cool with that. This is great. So I really got to dive, out of being, having to wear many hats to just wearing one and just be a drummer. And you get to apply some of your, last decade or so of playing. And now you can apply some of that towards what you're bringing to the table. Believe me, Chuck and I had many a conversation about Watchtower in those days. Chuck was a huge Watchtower fan. Jason, I know you go back with Chuck a little bit, and just having the sort of influences that we both had. Chuck and I were the same age. He's just a few months older than I am, and we had just tons of the same musical influences. We loved all the same kind of music, and even some of the more obscure types of musical. We had a lot of the some similarities involved there. So, and also one thing, having go on, yeah, go on, do your thing. Laura's showing up. She's doing some stuff here at the studio. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Is it Jason?
Yeah, Jason.
Jason, my best.
Oh, she's sending you big hugs here.
Hey, awesome.
Oh, here you go. Take your sweet.
Sorry to jump in on the interview.
Hi.
Hey. Oh, good. How are you doing, Jason?
Awesome.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll let you guys back at it.
Do your
I'm
thing.
gonna be in
Whatever you
Rick's
gotta
room.
do. Are you
I'll be in
sure?
Rick's. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
All
Good
right.
seeing you, Jason.
Good to see you, Laura.
All right. Can I tell you to turn on the AC there, sir? Thank you. Badass. That's cool. She's doing some work here today for one of her other bands, Newcomb, who was on the road there. So,
Oh, right.
She's with Dark Angel. She's with Newcomb, and there's a number. She's also going to be doing a few appearances with Dethklok on this run here. So
Fantastic.
that's a busy woman herself, I tell you.
That's great. Well, I think it's back to Death here in a second, but real quick, since Laura jumped in, I want to say, you guys have been partners for a long time now, and to have you guys be friends and be partners and musical partners pretty much from the get-go is super special. And I just wanted to say that you're so lucky that you have a fucking army, that you have you have your I'm not calling one a captain and a co-captain, but you know what I mean. You have you've got
He's the captain and I'm I fully admit it. Absolutely.
Anyway, I think that that's really special, and
oh, thank you, brother.
Yeah, being able to share that and still get along is fucking amazing.
She has the patience of Job. Absolutely.
Amazing. Bless you both. Back to Death, please.
Right. Yeah. And, but one quick thing is we were brought together by Michelle Meldrum,
This
Power.
is correct. Yeah.
That's one thing that we all kind of share here.
Wow. Yeah. And if you want to talk about this just for 2 seconds, it was, I believe, Michelle maybe that had a Tape Traders mixtape that had Asylum on a Watchtower song on it or something that Michelle had given to you. For those listening, Michelle was in War God with Gene, early thrash band from Southern California, War God. That actually, I'll do it now. If you can see the Watchtower California license plate,
I see that. Yeah.
Greg Gunther gave me that.
You're kidding.
No, that was on Greg's car.
Oh, that's amazing. Look at that. Boy, that just goes back. That's amazing. I've been staring at that this whole time. Yeah,
I mean,
man.
holy moly. That's from Greg's car. The bass player War God. Well, and that's Michelle Meldrum. So you get this tape from Michelle. Who the fuck call Michelle? Who the fuck is this? What's this fucking song here? Blah, 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 blah. And that's what set you and I's pen pal engagement. So,
precisely. It's good memory, brother. And that's exactly how
this is for Metal Dave. The first time I heard Disposable Heroes, an unreleased at the time Metallica track, was from a tape Gene licked a stamp and mailed to me because I begged you over the phone. I think I have to look at it. That's it. Oh my God. And you obliged. And I sent it right back. I think I dubbed it and sent it right back to you because it was your tape. It wasn't my tape to keep. And it was some live show and festival in Germany. They broke out Disposable Fucking Heroes. And I was excited. I was excited for metal. I was excited for everyone that was happening.
Me too. Yeah, because that was the first song we all heard from Master of Puppets, and we're like, wait, go Metallica. Okay, you guys are bringing it still.
So that would have been, that still would have been 85 that they were breaking out that song. Yeah.
That's right. Summer of 85.
Attempt to get back to death now.
Man.
I railed again.
No, it's all good. Well, that was, and that was one, again, like for myself, getting to concentrate on being a drummer and having like what Death was going through musically, what they, their journey at the time their musical journey when I was joining them, they were starting to get into the, more technical, prog elements of metal. And that's where, Watchtower was definitely coming into the conversations a lot more than, say, Possessed would have been, 6-7 years earlier kind of thing, Slayer kind of thing. And for me, and I've always said this, is having Sean Reinert's incredible performance on the Human album, which preceded Individual Thought Patterns, having that laid down as a template just opened up so many avenues for I guess, my approach, because hear that, Chuck, you're open to this, you're open to a Rick Kolaluka style. And I fully, like, always have to take it one step beyond Sean and Sean's love of Rick Kolaluka, and all of our love of Watchtower. There would be no Cynic or no Death or anything like Death in the individual, human, individual, symbolic, Sound of Perseverance kind of era without a Watchtower involvement in our musical listenings and our awakenings and explorations and things like that. So it was just a really good time, and getting to work with my future brothers, Steve DiGiorgio. That was our first time we worked together. We've been pals. When Dark Angel, we would always have Sadis open for us when we play the Bay Area.
Oh, cool.
And that's what Steve always, Steve's always like, we always appreciated that. We always knew we had a good gig when you guys would come to town, and so that was always really cool. Yeah. And then just getting to work together, we formed a brotherhood that remains to this day. Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's talk about Testament. You bringing up Steve DiGiorgio, and working with Testament. Tell us a little bit about the core recordings and your greatest moments with Testament. And maybe they're not over. Who knows? You may make another Testament record. Tell us what. I think that the last record you made with Testament is fucking brilliant. I think that to be able to bring Testament to another level was almost impossible, and I think that you did it.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah. Excellent. Well, that's very cool. Well, I on that last album, Titans of Creation.
Yes.
That was one where Eric Peterson and myself, we spent some time putting that one together. I know with its predecessor, Brotherhood of the Snake, I know Eric had worked with like a drum machine, and also my buddy Alex Bent from Trivium.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Alex had done a lot of the demo drumming on that, and so that was a good little just help to get that album going. And so with all the things that had happened involving the creation and recording of Brotherhood of the Snake, I felt like it would be a pretty good idea for Eric and I to get together from the inception. So the drum parts are, they're well established for rather than me trying to do some things that Alex was trying to do to recreate Gene's approach, play what Alex played when Alex was trying to play you. I just figured, let's just, just cut that middle person out, and Eric, let's get together. And so since I play guitar, I'm not averse to like, hey man, let me grab this guitar from you. Let me show you, maybe try this kind of approach to that riff. It's like, okay, I get where you're coming from with that approach kind of thing. So, I do try to be be the total package, I guess. I can bring you drums. I can also help you write riffs as well. So I'm pretty decent with arrangements as well. And so
and Dave
that was a decent
and lyrics. You write great lyrics too.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. He is.
Oh God, shoot. There you go. Yeah, shoot. That's right. We wrote some lyrics together. That's right. I remember those.
I gave you some titles, and you like an hour later, you sent me some lyrics. It was fucking crazy. But listen, we're gonna have to go. Are you interested in doing a part 2?
Absolutely. Yeah, we can make that happen. No problem. Anytime.
Excellent. We know that you're a busy guy, and we appreciate you joining us today.
This is my fault. I got to go see my kid's performance.
Oh, well, kick ass. What a great reason.
He's excited that I'm talking to you today. But I got to
my best. Absolutely.
I sure will. And again, we both thank you for the hospitality when we saw you in March. And as Jason says, if there's a chance for us to do a part 2, we'll pick up right where we left off, because this has been great. And
sounds good to me.
There's questions that we didn't even get to. So, Gene, thank you so much. On behalf of my co-host, Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave Glessner, along with our special guest today, Gene Hoglan, on the Talk Louder podcast.